Welcome along to Lorna Porca here on WLR. It's Tomás McCarthy here till 7 o'clock. Another packed show on the way. Brian Flannery will reflect on Waterford's first win over Limerick in 5 years. Daisha Camogie midfielder Shona Curran on their clash with Cork at Welsh Park. Ladies football boss Kieran Curran on their local derby with Tipperary. And Slieve Gua St Mary's is the next stop in our Pride of the Parish series.
He plays the ball dangerously across inside into the danger zone. Can Waterford get a touch? And this is into the back of the net. Jack Fagan is the man who got the touch. Jack turns and back of the net it goes. We needed a goal, we got it. The De La Salle man gets a goal when we needed it. 54 minutes gone, 114, 16 points. We go in front for the first time, Fergal.
Brilliant by Fagan. He must have leapt 3 or 4 feet into the sky, and that's what he has. He's a brilliant hand, and he was bottled up, and what a brilliant finish.
Yes, what a leap and what a goal by Jack Fagan to fire Waterford to victory over Limerick last Sunday. And to reflect on that win, delighted to be joined line again by former Daisha defender and Munster Express writer Brian Flannery. And Brian, first of all, what impressed you most about that Waterford performance last Sunday?
Yeah, look, it was, anytime you turn over the All-Ireland champions is a good victory. But I think just the way they went about it, and I suppose the way the game transpired, with Limerick losing the player early in the game, at that stage, it kind of became a game that Waterford needed to win or had to win, because they had the numerical advantage for most of the game. And it would have, if Waterford would have went away from the game without a victory, it would, continue that sort of Limerick dominance. But it was very much a statement victory and fiercely important, I suppose, to give, confidence a boost going into the last couple of games in the league, but more importantly for the championship, that Waterford can take on any team and on a given Sunday can beat them. I think that was, hugely important from a confidence point of view. And but the game itself was actually fierce, enjoyable. It was really competitive and a great game to win.
Absolutely, Brian, and it meant a lot to both teams. You could see that in the nature of the hits, and there was a bit of needle in it, I think, all through, and it kind of spilled over in injury time in front of the Waterford dugout. But why was it so important for Waterford to come out on the right side of the result?
Well, I think psychologically, having lost to Limerick by a good bit in, say, last December's All-Ireland, and having lost to Limerick in the Munster final as well. And it's gone to be, I suppose, a little bit of a stretch since Waterford have beaten Limerick. And look, they are the standard bearers. They are the team that are dictating terms at the moment. They're the team, if you want to win silverware, Limerick is a team you're most likely going to have to beat. So that's why it was so important, I suppose, to win the game. But I think it even became more important when Limerick went down to 14 players, because that would have been left a bit of scar tissue if Waterford were unable to beat Limerick with such a numerical advantage for so long. So I think for a lot of areas, a lot of reasons, it was hugely important to get the victory, because this Waterford team want to win titles, they want to win silverware. And if that is the case, you need to beat teams like Limerick. They are the standard bearers. And remember, John Kiley, they very much wanted to win the game, and that probably added to the competitive nature of it. They pushed Will O'Donoghue in off the bench as well. So, they weren't really holding back by the time the game came into decision time in the second half. So hugely important to win it, and a nice boost, I suppose, at this kind of halfway stage in the league.
And as someone who soldiered in the full backline, Brian, for many years, I'm sure you appreciated Conor Prunty's display at number 3 for Waterford. What aspects of his performance did you enjoy?
Yeah, look, I think it's great to have, I suppose, a commanding presence and a commanding figure at full back. I suppose, look, in our day, I was fortunate enough to play beside Sean Conlan for a couple of years, and you always knew, no matter who was lining up in the full forward line, that, Sean Conlan was going to be well able to take care of them. And I think in Conor Prunty, we now have a player that's kind of made that position his own. And it's not an easy position to man, and not a lot of players will be volunteering to go in and play full back, but he has all the attributes. Obviously he's physical and very strong, both in the air, but his all-round hurling ability, is really what makes the difference. He's able to, come out, win his own ball, and that was very much evident against Aaron Gillan on last Sunday. Great display, and I suppose, look, that's particularly when he's carrying that captain's armband as well, or playing the captain's role. It does give confidence to players around him, and it gives confidence certainly to Billy Nolan, who's coming in to I suppose to make his name as first choice goalkeeper as well. So hugely important, great to see, because that sort of confidence, it goes through the team. Then once you have a strong base, it does make a huge difference.
Yeah, and like Prunty was named TG Carr man of the match in the end, Brian, which is sort of unusual for maybe someone lining out at full back, but I'd say Calum Lyons was pretty close to it. Like, he was really back to his best, 3 points from play. Why is he emerged as one of Waterford's go-to players under Liam Cahill?
Well, I suppose, look, even from the first year, I think he came in under Pádraig Fanning, in what was a very difficult season and difficult championship. He was certainly one of Waterford's best players even that year, and he's built on it since. But he's kind of your modern halfback who, has great athleticism. He's able to get up and down the field, but he's accurate as well. His scoring ability, 3 points from play last Sunday. We all remember that vital goal against Cork last year. So he is playing that sort of modern halfback, attacking halfback role. As I said, it's a huge boost, but he's come along hugely, I suppose, in the last couple of years. I would have remembered him playing minor. I think his dad was probably manager at the time, and he would have been playing, I think, probably midfield at the time. But certainly in the last couple of years, his performance levels, is akin to any halfback midfielder in the country. And, he was certainly a player I would have said was very unlucky not to win an All-Star last year. And he's carrying in that form into the new season. And that's a great boost, I suppose, to Liam Cahill and his management team, to have your best players playing at top level, in good form. But the way the game, I suppose, is going as well, there is that space for players to move forward and to shoot scores from distance. And Calum Lyons certainly has that ability. And he's great player to watch. I mean, even last year in the intermediate championship, like, he was brilliant for Ballydofflower. He's really one of Waterford's best players.
He certainly is, Brian. A very, very exciting player to watch, as you mentioned, I suppose. And another player who's very easy on the eye is Austin Gleeson, and we saw him positioned at number 6 the last day for Waterford, I suppose, after being up in the forward line against Cork and really impressing that day in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. I suppose we saw Irela Daly a centre-back the previous 2 games, and he'll now be suspended for the trip to Galway next month for his part in the melee at the end of the game. We're now, I suppose, a month out from the Munster Championship against Clare, Brian. Who is Waterford's best option in that centre-back position, do you think?
Well, the great debate goes on, in relation to Austin Gleeson and what's his best position, or where should Waterford play him. And, I thought perhaps after last year's, championship that we wouldn't see Austin back in the half-back line again. But I suppose in the absence of Tadhg de Búrca, it was something that the Waterford management wanted to look at. And somebody of Austin's ability obviously can play in any position. Thought he started slowly but worked his way into the game last Sunday. I suppose the bigger question is at the other end of the field, can you afford to take one of your, I suppose, most proficient scorers out of the Waterford forward line? If you go back to last December in the All-Ireland final, driving back from Croke Park, certainly the sense I would have had was that, Limerick had 4 or 5 top-class forwards who could get multiple scores on the big day. A lot of the scoring fell on the shoulders of Stephen Bennett and Austin Gleeson. Can Waterford afford to take him out of the forward line is probably, I suppose, a more pertinent question. And again, at half-back, Waterford have options. Calum Lyons, Kevin Moran, Irela Daly, they certainly have options. Kieran Power maybe is another one that didn't do any harm this year so far. They have maybe more options at half-back than they have maybe at half-forward. So I'm not so sure we're going to see Austin permanently in the number 6 jersey. But it is interesting. It's an ongoing debate. And I think I remember Liam Cahill before he started. He was kind of, I suppose, nailing his colours to the mast, decreeing that he felt Austin Gleeson would be the ideal centre-back. But I suppose circumstances has meant that he's operated mostly in the forward line for Liam Cahill. So it's an ongoing debate, but I'm not so sure at this stage Waterford can afford to not have Austin Gleeson in the forward line.
So come June 27th against Clare, Brian, who do you think is filling that number 6 for Waterford?
Look, it could very well be Irela Daly. He's a young player with tons of ability. He got an outstanding score last Sunday. He's pick up and spin out of trouble. Again, he's another player with tons of ability. Big ask maybe for a young player to go into a senior setup and man the centre back position. But again, he wasn't phased when he came on very early in the All-Ireland final. I could very well see Irela Daly, I suppose, manning that position with maybe Kevin Moran and Caleb Lyons on the wings. Very possible.
Very good. And like Brian, you've been at Waterford's 3 matches to date against Cork, Westmeath and Limerick. Outside of the big names, who else has stood out for you?
Yeah, look, I suppose another player that's is not a new player, but he's kind of a player, I suppose, that has yet to really stamp his authority at senior level is Patrick Horan. He has all the skills, and I think any of us, I suppose, watching Waterford hurling in recent years will, fond memories of his performance in both the minor All-Ireland and under 21 All-Ireland. But he hasn't quite, I suppose, fitted in at times into a forward division. There was certainly maybe times over the years I would have felt that, the fact that Waterford at times were playing maybe only 4 or 3 forwards and maybe only 1 in the inside line mitigated against someone with Patrick Horan's ability. He's a real touch player, he's brilliant first touch, and as I said, look, he's a great finisher. But he needs that, I suppose, look, he needs a certain system to thrive in. And he has certainly looked, I suppose, a lot more dangerous under Liam Cahill, and whether he can, I suppose, go on now and actually get a starting position and get a chance to deliver on, I suppose, all that underage promise. But I think he's certainly done himself no harm. 3 points off the bench last Sunday against Limerick, against good defenders in where it was a competitive, lot of bite in that game. I'm sure that won't have gone unnoticed.
No, certainly not. 3 huge points off the bench, as you mentioned, Brian. And there's 2 more chances left to impress now, away to Galway and at home to Tipperary. What approach do you think Liam Cahill and the management team will take for the rest of the competition? Yeah,
I think it's about, I suppose, managing game time for players. And in fairness, Dave, there's a lot of players have got game time. It was very much kind of a second string against Westmeath. But players need to play. They need the opportunity, I suppose, to stake a claim. So I would see quite a bit of, squad rotation, maybe a mix and match line up against Galway. It will be a difficult trip, and maybe a stronger outfit in to face Tipperary in Welsh Park. Liam Cahill has made it, quite clear that he very much values playing at home, and wants even without, I suppose, supporters at the games, wants to make Welsh Park into a fortress. So I could see a very strong lineup, maybe with Championship only a couple of weeks after that, against Tipperary, maybe as a sort of a dry run. But it is about, I suppose, seeing who's going well in training, who needs a rest, who needs game time. It's a very different league, and I don't think any manager or county is going to be, I suppose, too concerned with results or who finishes on top. It is more about preparation for the championship. So between the last 2 games against Galway and Tipperary, you could see quite a bit of rotation of players, with the championship game against Clare looming large over the next few weeks.
Well, former Waterford defender and Munster Express writer Brian Flannery, thanks so much for your time today.
Cheers, Tomas.
Irela Daly feeds the ball back to Caleb Lyons. Has a look, that's a great score. Well set up by Daly, finished by Caleb Lyons.
That's a savage score. He's a great support runner, Kieran. Always gives the option. And when he's in the shooting range, you can defend him. He'll always chip in with 2 or 3 points in the game from half back. Huge addition.
Now you're hurling. Lorna Porca with Tomas McCarthy on WLR.
Well, the Waterford footballers can clinch a place in the Division 4 semi-finals if Carlow beat Wexford on Saturday evening, or if the game finishes in a draw. 13-man Waterford got the better of Wexford by 2-13 to 18 points last Saturday, and after suffering a 15-point loss to Carlow the week before, Shane Ronayne was proud of his charges.
We had a very positive week, I suppose we were all a bit apprehensive going down Tuesday night down to Fairfield, what was going to happen, whether I was apprehensive, the boys were apprehensive, I said, what was going to happen, and just, we had a very positive conversation about what the good things they were doing, and the things that we were doing wrong, I think we could sort, some days you're going to miss chances, but I think the work rate had to be improved. They knew that themselves. They were very, very honest on Tuesday night. They're probably overcritical of themselves. They're lacking a bit of belief, I think. And look, that happens when you're down in Division 4 and you're struggling for wins and things like that, and things are going against you. And I think there was a great spirit there. There was a great togetherness in the boys, and I was so proud of what they did in the second half today. Everything was going against them, and when they went up to 7 minutes and we were down to 14, and they were really battling. Look, you've got to be cute to win games of football as well. The best teams in the country are probably the most cynical teams in the country. And I think we did what we had to do there, and I'll make no apologies for that. But I'm delighted for the boys, delighted for the contribution that they all made. All the subs came on, did incredibly well, and there was a great togetherness, I think, during the week. And I think to come back from where we did, last. I suppose waking up last Sunday morning, it wasn't a good place, and the boys themselves knew that as well. But I think their response has been fantastic. Very, very proud of them.
We love Waterford. We are WLR.